Hey, what's up, guys? It's your good friend Jimbo. Today's episode is presented by Vaer. Vaer was founded with the goal of building an affordable everyday wristwatch that blends tasteful design with extreme durability and functionality. Vaer returns a sense of dignity to affordable wristwatches and are built to last. Vaer is a true American watch company specializing in both quartz and automatic watches. Vaer is offering our listeners 15% off if you use the code PODGO15. Go to vaerwatches.com to learn more and get your new timepiece today.
You heard the rest. Now here's the best. Stay Tuned Sports Podcast.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. It's your good friend Jimbo here again, just like every week. A lot of news going on this past week. Astros in another brawl, surprise, surprise. Some playoffs going on. Oh yeah, hockey. Hockey's back finally. The official playoffs actually started yesterday, Tuesday. I'm recording Wednesday. I'm gonna get my picks. I should have did this last week, but didn't know that they were actually starting Tuesday. I thought maybe they would start tonight, Wednesday night. But there was 3 games last night and a 5 overtime game. I mean, Jesus, I didn't watch it. I had to get up early for work, but I saw some of the stats this morning broken down. I think it was something like, excuse me, like 158 shots, 80 some saves combined for both teams, and the game was 4.5 hours long or something. Like Jesus, at what a lot of credit to those players that trucked through it and everything, because that's a long time to be skating. But we'll get into the hockey playoff talk, a little bit here, but also some college football news slowly coming out. 2 conferences canceling, postponing. And I think that's the big issue. Is a lot of people think it's canceling, but we'll get into that as well. So before we really get into all the topics, head over to Twitter, follow us there at ST Sports Podcast. Like and share our Facebook page, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. And head over to our website, staytunesports.net, and show that some love. All the social links are over there, as well as our merchandise Teespring site. So hopefully, and I'm still working with this other company to set up a clothing, I guess, merchandise stuff, other than just t-shirts, some cool things there. I'm already figuring I'm gonna buy myself. So, but yeah. So Astros got into another brawl a couple days ago. They were playing the A's, and Laureano for the A's got hit in the back of the back by the Astros pitcher, and Kai has a couple words for him as he's walking down first base line, and turned out it was the 3rd time in the series that he has been hit, and 2nd time in that game. Now, once he got to first base, benches didn't clear out all at that point of him chirping with the pitcher. Got to first base and heard somebody saying something out of the Astros dugout, which in turn was the hitting coach for the Astros, Cintron. Started saying something to him. Laureano's chirped back, and according to Laureano, Cintron said something in Spanish about Laureano's mother, and it broke out. The brawl broke out. Laureano ran out at the dugout, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it, Cintron like a bitch. Hid behind the players, the managers. He stepped up to the last step on the dugout, and as soon as Laureano started running over at him, the catcher for the Astros tackled him. Benches got cleared. after obviously a while, it got calmed down. But it brings up a lot of questions here. This is obviously not the first time the Astros are involved in a bench clearing brawl. Let's not forget last week the Dodgers' Joe Kelly plunked I forget which batter it was that caused a bench clearing, not necessarily a brawl, but words were exchanged because Joe Kelly kind of taunted the Astros batters about how they can't hit because they can't cheat now. And being I brought up Joe Kelly, my question is, how long should these suspensions be? Obviously, Laureano is probably going to look at suspension just for going after the coach. Whether it was a coach or player, he'd probably be looking at suspension because with COVID going on, baseball laid out, before they restart the season, laid out what's going to happen if you start a fight, if there's a bench clearing brawl. And the other aspect of it too is, as a manager, Cintron may be looking at a longer suspension than Laureano because he's supposed to be lead by example. He's supposed to show these players how to act and how not to act. And I mean, if we're looking at the Joe Kelly suspension, should Laureano get that? I don't think he should get the 8-game suspension. He should get something because, again, you shouldn't start a fight to begin with in baseball. But especially with the high risk going on with COVID, I would be okay with a 2 or 3 game suspension for Laureano. I still don't think Joe Kelly should have got 8 games, so that's why I'm not saying 8 games for Laureano. As far as the Astros coach, Cintron, I'd lay the hammer down. Because just like I just said, he's supposed to lead by example. You got mad because Laureano was yelling at the pitcher of how to throw a breaking ball. You're supposed to, twist your wrist. Like if you go back and watch the video, you see Laureano motioning that to the pitcher. And you get mad, and then you get even more mad because he's chirping back at you. So now you probably use a lot of explicitives about his mother. Honestly, if I was MLB, and this goes twofold, I think here. Like I said, this is the second bench clearing incident involving the Astros. Not saying that they started it, because obviously Joe Kelly pretty much did start that one. This one was on the Astros. I would suspend the coach even 10 games. Again, you're supposed to lead by example. And if you guys remember the offseason too, with some of the players coming out not agreeing with the punishment that was handed down to the Astros for cheating, maybe if you make an example, a heavy fine, heavy suspension, and say, you know what, guys, enough is enough. Let's stop with this plunking each other or trying to take each other out. Astros are mad at the whole league because of this. The league's all mad at Astros because of cheating. You do a big enough suspension, heavy enough fine, things will calm down. Because, again, they're not getting a full salary for the year. They're getting a prorated salary, so they're not making as much as they used to. So if you get involved into a brawl, and not even just with the Astros, but you're setting, as Major League Baseball, you're setting an example that there will not be fights tolerated this year or any year. And I think MLB needs to step in right now before this gets too ugly and put an end to it. Will it happen? I mean, we've seen how Manfred is being, how he's doing as far as the commissioner, not doing that well. Still believes that the teams didn't have to be in a bubble, and just like the NHL, NBA, and WNBA, obviously we see how well they're doing. NBA, I think I just saw yesterday, went 2 weeks without a positive case. Baseball still having issues all over the league, and we'll get into that in a second here. But yeah, I definitely do feel MLB and the commissioner needs to step in, lay the hammer down, really suspend and fine the coach of the Astros. Suspend Laureano for starting the brawl. Like I said, I would do 2-3 games. I think that'd be fair because, again, Joe Kelly's 8-game suspension was basically 18% of the season. And as a pitcher, that's big. But 2 or 3 games as a player, that's basically 2 weeks, 2-week suspension in this shortened year. Now, sticking with baseball here, there has been reports coming out that baseball is already talking about doing some form of bubble for the playoffs. We've seen what had happened with the Cardinals and the Marlins when their teams tested positive for COVID. And even though both teams did agree that it was their fault for not taking it seriously, basically, Marlins didn't play for 5-6 days, almost a week. Cardinals were just as long, but it wasn't just those two teams that got affected. It affected the teams that they were supposed to play. The Phillies got postponed for a couple days. The Orioles and Marlins series got postponed. The Yankees-Phillies game got postponed because the Marlins were in that clubhouse, which the Yankees would have been going into. So, to make it through the playoffs without hopefully any incidences, basically to try to lower the chances of any incidences, they're talking about doing a bubble. Now, there is a lot to talk about, going into this. Obviously, with MLB expanding to 16 playoff teams, the league would need at least 3 hub teams to complete its wild card round. After a wild card round, then you can shrink it down to 2 hub cities. Now, the cities that I saw they were talking about were New York, obviously Yankee Stadium, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington. Nothing against New York. I mean, I really haven't seen any drastic numbers go flying back up for New York, but New York was one of the hot spots. Philadelphia as well. I think for entertainment purposes, to kind of include that, I think Baltimore should be one of the cities. I mean, it's a home run ballpark. You guys want offense, so why not go there? And then, as far as West Coast, they were looking at Milwaukee as a Midwest hub. I'd probably go with those 2 cities. Because Milwaukee, you didn't really hear much about, high numbers or anything like that out there. And it's a nice ballpark, But I definitely do think baseball needs to go to a hub-style playoff if they want to make it through the playoffs without any incidences that may, prolong the playoffs a little bit. Because they can't have a repeat of the Marlins-Phillies series and then have them postponed for a week. You're already going into October, I believe it is. I think September 26th is the last regular season game. You're going to probably play 2-3 more weeks till the World Series. So you postpone a week or two, now you're going back into November. And on top of that, going into November, Baltimore could be looking at snow. Philadelphia could be looking at snow. New York definitely could be looking at snow. You know, you got to take the weather into consideration. So nothing is definitely set yet. But I think the right thing for baseball to do, they screwed it up in the beginning of the season here by not going to a bubble. This is their chance to salvage, I should say, some face of this situation by going to a bubble city. Now, obviously, before we get into the whole college football conferences, which ones are canceling, postponing, still going on, it came out that there's going to be a spring league starting, well, training camp basically, starting in October. Which, when I read it, and I'll go into some of the numbers here, but when I read it, I'm thinking, oh man, what about the XFL? Like, just last week I just said, it'd be perfect for them to come back because of, college players skipping out and everything. But it's going to be made up of a 6-team football tournament in Las Vegas in October, and they're going to use a bubble concept. That's pretty much why they're going to just stay in Las Vegas. It's mostly going to be made up of players from the NFL that got released, and will include 20 to 30 college players from the Power 5 schools that either opted out of playing this year or had their season canceled. They're figuring that would be about total of about 228 players, 38 per team, will be housed in one hotel in Vegas, kind of like what NBA is doing with Disney, and all play at the same facility. As far as game day, and this I think NFL should look into doing as well to help themselves out as far as the COVID goes. During the games, the league will ban huddles, so no more huddles for the spring league here, and will limit each team to 19 players on the sideline, with the other 19 players in the back of the end zone, ready to be called upon, when needed, as well as coaches back there too. I think that, honestly, that's a really good idea. Definitely the huddle thing I think is a good idea. Almost make every play like a hurry up offense type deal. It's gonna be a lot of signals they're gonna have to incorporate. But how is this gonna affect the XFL? In my opinion, I don't think it's gonna hurt it now. When I first saw the spring league, obviously you think spring, you think next year, March, April, May, something like that. But if they're having this in October, don't think it's going to affect them too much, which I don't have in my notes. Speaking of the XFL, I did see it as that truck was by again. God, I gotta get soundproofed up here. I did see Fox, the TV station, is interested in trying to strike a TV deal with the XFL to air the football games. Again, I said it last week, that's big. They could get XFL. If the XFL could get Fox and CBS or NBC to help air the games, that is big for them. That'll help them stay alive this time. But getting back to the spring league, basically it's going to be going up against the NFL. I don't even think anybody's really going to notice it's on, but it will be good for the NFL players that didn't have a chance to get some film on themselves. Obviously, with training camp, with the preseason games being canceled, there's going to be a lot of undrafted rookies that are going to get cut because they just couldn't get into the starting lineup. Whereas if they had some preseason games, third, fourth quarter of each game, they get some playing time. So as far as the undrafted, like I said, I don't see it being big on TV, but it will help big, I believe, for the players that didn't have a chance to really show what they have. And if, unfortunately, some players from the NFL get tested positive for COVID, these players in the spring league have some film on themselves. They could go to the head coach, GM, whatever, and say, here you go, here's what I could have done for you if we had preseason games. And maybe they could get signed. So now for the big elephant in the room story. College football. Been talking about it for quite some time now, for a few months now. I've been saying for the longest time I don't think there's going to be college football. And it's still up in the air. Now, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 both voted to cancel their fall sports and possibly have spring football. Whereas SEC flat out said, we're playing. We're not backing out. ACC are supposed to be discussing options tonight as I'm recording. Big 12 has no decisions to this point, but they're supposed to meet last night. Actually, I think I did see something about Big 12. Before I go, I'll check that. I think Big 12 might have canceled theirs. But as I'm looking that up, though, with these teams canceling or not canceling, honestly, I think it's time for the NCAA to step in and say, you know what? Maybe it's best for everyone to just postpone the season. Because here's my big question that I have. Oh no, Big 12 to move forward with plans for fall football season. Okay. But even with them moving forward with the season, here's my question is, okay, you got the Big 10 and you got the Pac-12 not playing this fall. How are you going to crown a national champion? Do you automatically kick those teams out of any chance? And you can't let these other teams that say that they're going to play, let them play the season, wait off on a national championship, and then when these other teams decide to play their spring league, figure out then. You can't do that. That's just idiotic. And this is why I think the NCAA should step in and say either everybody plays or everybody doesn't play. My feeling is NCAA is going to be the last people to speak up about this because they don't want to be the ones to say, hey, we have to cancel the season. This way, if the conference is canceled, they can say, hey, we were okay with having a season. They're the ones that canceled on you guys. Honestly, I think that's what's going on with the NCAA. And I feel bad for these kids, too, because there may be a lot of seniors and juniors that are on the bubble of being a possible second or third day draft player. Right now, they may be not even on any team's boards before the season starts. And just like I just said about the undrafted rookies not having preseason games, in a way, these games are these players' preseason games for the draft. Yeah, they have some film on themselves their freshman, sophomore years. But we've seen plenty of times, how many times, a player be, okay, sophomore year, and then just totally blow up his junior year. Now, what I personally think there shouldn't. I think they should cancel the season. Not even postpone it till spring. I think they should cancel it because this virus thing, obviously it's no joke. And the more we interact with each other, the more it's going to stick. The longer it's going to stick around. And unfortunately, with 120 colleges that are involved with the NCAA, you can't do a bubble city. There's going to be a lot of traveling going around. Like even right now with Notre Dame, they joined the ACC schedule. They got Miami on their schedule, so they got to go down to Florida, which is one of the hot spots. They got Duke. They got, possibly Brigham Young because I believe they lost one game because of the Big Ten or Pac-12, one of them stepping out. So they have an open game. They were looking at Navy, but this will be the first year in God knows how long since that they're not going to be playing each other. I think by this weekend, Sunday night, you're going to see NCAA step in and say, yeah, season's over, guys. And if that does happen, because, we got Trevor Lawrence out there, we got a couple other players saying, please don't cancel our season. We'll sign waivers, this and that. It's not about, suing somebody anymore. It's about you getting the virus and dying. Trevor Lawrence, the big joke right now is Patriots are already tanking to get Trevor. You have potential to be number one pick overall. Why not just, chill, relax, work out. You're going to get paid next year. So definitely think by Sunday or so, you're going to hear something about the season being canceled. So before we go, we have one little last bit of piece of news, and that is hockey playoffs, the official playoffs. Last week was like the pre-playoffs, but this is real playoffs starting yesterday. Like I said, I know I should have did my picks last week, but so I'm going to run down the pairings here, give my opinions on some of them, and give my picks. Obviously, it's Wednesday. Tonight, Philadelphia starts their playoffs against the Montreal Canadiens. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be an easy run for the Flyers. I think the Canadiens are going to give them a little bit of issues, but the Flyers are just so hot right now. They're too hot. I mean, everybody was scared that having those months off may have cooled them down, and not once during the round robin series did they ever not lead. They led every game. They played well, and even Brian Elliott, even though he played only one game, he played well. Carter Hart, he was lights out. Now my question about him is, now that the real playoffs are starting, is he going to be able to keep up that same style, that same type of play? Flyers going up against a very good goalie in Carey Price, but could be streaky at times. Hopefully, if we get one or two quick goals up on him, we kind of break his spirits in a way and we go away with it. And the other thing that I took away from the round robin with the Flyers too was that first line's got to get going. Claude Giroux didn't have any points. Sean Couturier, I think he only had 2. But Hayes, Kevin Hayes really helped put some points up there. Scotty Lawton was outstanding. So if we could get that front line going and then have that Hayes and Lawton line keep up, it's going to be tough to beat us. So I'm still going with the Flyers. After that, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Blue Jackets. Now, last night's game, I touched on a little bit in the beginning of the episode here. Tampa Bay won last night after going through a 5 overtime game. I mean, Jesus Christ! I hope they have today off. I hope they have tomorrow off. After that, they basically played 2.5 games. I mean, geez. But as far as the series goes, I like Tampa Bay. I think they're going to pull us out. I just think they have too much offense. And their goaltender is just top notch. He's the best in the league. For now, till Carter Hart comes and takes it over. But yeah, definitely going to go Tampa Bay that series. Then we have Washington Capitals versus New York Islanders. Interesting matchup here. Washington has the offense, but New York Islanders head coach is Barry Trotz, former head coach of the Washington Capitals. So he knows some of the weaknesses, some of the strengths of those players. As far as the series, I'm going with the Islanders with the upset. I think having Barry Trotz back there with playoff experience, championship experience, and then on top of that, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of those players is going to come into effect. Then we have the Boston Bruins versus the Carolina Hurricanes. Boston did not look good at all. I don't care what Marchand said, saying the round robin wasn't really a playoff. It was just a tune-up game. No. Because now you may have just screwed yourself because you went from playing the Montreal Canadiens to playing the Carolina Hurricanes. That's a big difference in seeding. But even with that being said, I'm going with the Bruins. You got to go with the Bruins. I think they finally get it clicking. And I think they finally start putting some points up on that board too. So going with the Bruins with that series. Then we have Vegas Golden Knights versus the Chicago Blackhawks. Again, Vegas is up 1-0 after winning yesterday 4-1. Honestly, I think Vegas is going to just win this in 4 games because overall they're just too good for Chicago. Chicago's older. Vegas is still hungry. So I'm going with Vegas for that series. Then we have the Avalanche versus the Coyotes. Just like the Flyers, Colorado is hot right now. But Arizona is averaging 3.5 goals since the qualifying round started. This could be a very good series. Could be a close series. This could be like a game, 7 or whatever, like a late game series. Gonna go with the Colorado though. I'm gonna go with the Avalanche with this one. Then we have Dallas versus Calgary. If Dallas could keep these games close, I believe they'll pull out them. If they get away, it's kind of like they just I don't want to say give up because these players don't really give up, but it's hard for them to get back into the game. Now, even though I just said if they keep it close, they could win, they are down 1-0 to Calgary after losing yesterday 3-2. I think more times than not, if Dallas keeps it close, they could pull the series off. But they're Dallas. I never vote for any Dallas sports team, so Calgary it is. Then for the last team, we have the St. Louis Blues versus the Vancouver Canucks. The Blues, who won the Cup last year, I hope they don't have the same thinking that Marchand from Boston has, because they went 0-2-1 in round robin. They should win this just because they're a good team, and Vancouver is a young team, inexperienced. So I'm going St. Louis with this series. There's UFC fights this week. I know I said I was going to live tweet last week. Stuff came up again. I'm trying to get all that stuff out of my Saturdays so I can live tweet with you guys and interact with you. But Daniel Cormier versus Diapié this weekend. Maybe I'll try to do a quick live show before the fights come on. So make sure you head over to Twitter because that's where I'll post it. ST Sports Podcast. Like and share our Facebook page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure you head over to staytunesports.net for all those social media links and the merch sites over there. And if you want to be on the show, contact me over there. So until next week, this is your good friend Jimbo, signing out.